And that may be because the COVID campaign was intended to be covert. Such a shame that these documents were leaked, foiling their plan.
Oh man, I didn't even know that they all think this is like a get, that they're all like, yes, we have done it, we have finally proven the evil Breadtubers will be destroyed. What is Breadtube? Jackson, is Breadtube in the room right now? I guess, I mean, technically, hold on, since you consider me to be part of it. Uh-oh, we're gonna do it now. Breadtube is coming for you. Breadtube's in the room right now. It's here, look, it's Breadtube. Oh no. All right, let's watch this. Caleb Maupin has a new video out called "The Gray Zone Proves Breadtube Serves Imperialism Was Right" by Jackson Hinkle. And if you didn't follow the absolute bombshell of an article that the Gray Zone put out, we went through it in detail. You can see the VOD and go watch it there. Basically, they've uncovered the conspiracy of conspiracies. They've proven Caleb Maupin to be correct and shown that, in fact, Philosophy Tube, Abigail Thorne, she happens to be a CIA-funded channel. Now, not directly, mind you. There's a couple stages that are going on here, okay? There happens to be a marketing agency, as well as I would say, a marketing PR firm that had a plan in order to promote anti-vax information, and in order to do that, they had many methods they were going to go about. One of them being that they were going to pay a certain amount, an undisclosed amount, to a prominent YouTuber known as Abigail Thorne. Now, that's as close and as generous as I can give them in terms of something they found. If that document turns out to be true, again, it's the Gray Zone, and they lie professionally, so I'm not exactly I'm not too convinced in terms of that. But hey, I also want to say, I'm not here to protect rich YouTube streamers, okay? Philosophy Tube is going to be just fine. Philosophy Tube, as it's said in the article multiple times, has over 7,000 patrons. She's doing very well for herself. She's also incredibly intelligent, and I'm sure would be able to get into this in some detail whenever she wants to defend it. I'm more just picking apart the fact that this Gray Zone article is absolute clown shoesery. Okay, of the highest order. And one of the biggest problems with these articles is they actually do the work, ironically, of defending, of obfuscating what people actually know about the CIA. The CIA does a lot of incredibly fucked up shit, both historically and currently to this day.
Yeah.
Oh shit! What do you know? I'm just about to talk about you. Welcome in. Welcome in. It's a CIA raid. Oh no. Oh no. Oh my. Well, this looks bad. Ugh. This looks real bad. You're not helping my case here, Sean, at all. Oh my. Well, I was going to bring up the fact that Sean is also featured prominently in this article. We are always watching. Where's my money? Huh? Is it because I'm not big enough? If I get 100 subs, can I get a check? Sean, can you put in a good word for me, please? Please. I mean, times are tough. It's the winter economy, you know. People can't donate as much as they used to, and I don't blame them. At the end of the day, I mean, everyone's strapped, everyone's pressed for cash. I could really use some of that CIA dollars. Get them to reach out. They can go by a different name, so I won't feel as guilty. Like the PIA. All right, they can be like, hey, this is the PIA. Wink. We were hoping to fund some monies to you. Here is some scripts we would like you to make on the YouTubes. You know what's also awesome? If we're speaking about this, and by the way, sorry, Sean and Sean's viewers, welcome in. We're just about to talk about Sean, so you're in good company. Twitch.tv/Sean. Please, everybody, go give Sean a big Sean_vid. Sorry. And why are you not a VIP? This will not stand. Hold on, Sean. There you go. You're VIP'd officially. You have a jewel about it. But hey, Sean's mentioned in this article, and that's where it just that's early on, and that's where it starts to go off the rails. Both the Vosh and the Sean section are where it just becomes utterly absurd. So for the Vosh section, first off, when they're talking about Vosh, they start using clips of him and quotes of him where he is clearly 100% being sarcastic for the purposes of comedy, where he pretends that he has a CIA handler. And the fact that you use those as actual factual evidence makes the entire thing so embarrassing. Like that's where I'm like, this is actually embarrassing for you, and really bad for the broader left if people take this kind of stuff seriously. If people are like, yeah, oh no, Gray Zone is great, because Gray Zone will talk about things that are real in the world. Will talk about fucked up things like the way America treats Cuba, the way the embargoes starve people in Cuba, the way that Cuba successfully made a whole bunch of vaccines and at the same time didn't have access to things it needed, like the materials to like the actual needles themselves. They had to go and find them from other countries and source them from other countries, because again, the way America basically tries to say, hey, by the way, any nation that is not capitalist, that is communist by nature, which by the way, they're not actually communist by the definition of communism, but anyways, any opposition to us, especially during the Cold War or our imperialism in general, is going to be seen as the baddies. And then we're also going to make them, we're going to strangle them with a whole bunch of embargoes and a whole bunch of sanctions. And then see, look how they fail. Look how Venezuela fails before your eyes. It was the communism that took down Venezuela. Yes, tis indeed, you know, that kind of stuff. So when the Gray Zone does publish articles on that, people are going to look at that article and be like, oh, okay, so this one was about how Vosh admitted to being an actual CIA handler because he made a joke about it, and this one is something that is real, but I'm just going to conflate the two of them as being utterly absurd. And the left as a whole, people do not call this kind of behavior out. Then they go on to talk about Sean, yes, of Sean Vids, and talk about how Sean, in his pursuit of, I guess, exposing Jimmy Dore on the behalf of, most likely, one can surmise, you know, it does a lot of that. It does a lot of, like, stuff you can tell your pseudo-journalism senses should be tingling when they start doing what should be in an opinion piece in an article that is not an opinion piece, such as, like, one can surmise, one would assume that, one should think that. When you hear that, you're like, yes, this does not pass what we'd call the smell test for good journalism. But anyways, talking about Sean and Sean's video, they completely skip over the fact that Sean exposed Jimmy Dore and exposed Jimmy Dore's editor. We have to be diligent here. It was not Jimmy Dore, of course, it was his editor, the unnamed editor that now has been fired. Jimmy fired an unnamed editor who shall remain nameless, even though they no longer work for Jimmy Dore, who was actually manipulating news articles. So putting up news articles as if they were real, but straight up manipulated them. Now, he does a really good job, by the way, of picking apart how Jimmy Dore actually uses like selective little clips and quotations from news articles to push his own narrative instead of the narrative of the articles themselves or of the scientists themselves or of the peer-reviewed study themselves. Jimmy Dore does that and he exposes them for that. But that isn't even the most egregious part. That Jimmy Dore, his editor, had actually changed the language. Like, he falsified it. Anyways, all that being said, the article was an absolute dumpster fire. It's like, it goes on so many tangents, and it'll just be like, here's a really scary thing that happens to be true that the CIA does, or some dark operations that are going on in Syria. And then here is one of our completely random conspiracy theories about, content producers we don't like. And then here's another real thing that happens that's super, super scary, and we're just going to mention it and talk about it in detail. And then here's the fact that Abigail Thorne may have gotten money from this marketing and PR firm. Again, at its very most generous. And that's not something new, by the way. That wouldn't be like, oh my God, bombshell. Like, if I found out tomorrow that Mr. Beast, the YouTuber, has gotten money from marketing agencies, which in turn were paid off by government entities that were trying to spread pro-vaccine information, that would not astound me in the slightest. That is how the world works. Like, for a group of people who claim to be anti-capitalist to think that there's some kind of conspiracy theory there, rather than it is in the interests of capital to get everyone back to work, to end the pandemic as quickly as possible in that sense, in a vaccinated sense, from the workers' perspective, not to suddenly make healthcare free, not to suddenly hold Big Pharma accountable for all the shady stuff they've done, like take a whole bunch of public government funding to make the vaccines themselves. Like, none of that. We're not going to talk about it from that aspect, right? Apparently you have to be careful because Vosh is in it. Oh, he is a banned streamer, boy. It may be a very quick clip, I'm not sure. But hey, by the way, with Vosh being banned, with Vosh being banned, how is it that
Did you read the full article?
Well, hold on. How is it that every other streamer is able to play him? Like, Irrelevant is still watching Vosh, Destiny is still watching Vosh. Like, have the rules changed with his? Is it like because it's a temporary suspension or something? Because like my 7-day ban was for playing a Vosh versus Sargon of Akkad debate. That's why I got banned for 7 days. What would Destiny talk about all day if Vosh is banned? Hassan. Apparently you have to be careful though. Yeah, okay. If I see it, I'll Xander Hall covered Vosh's face with his. Oh, okay. Well, I do have some things I could put up. Hold on. Let's just get it ready. I don't mean to actually add it on to Jackson Hinkle. I mean, I got to save it for when Vosh shows up. So I'll just have a pre-safety beanie like this, and so I can activate it at any time. So should Vosh appear, I'll turn this on to censor him. I'll censor Vosh with the beanie effectively. All right, I'm also going to take fake Chico out because you've been a good boy, but it is kind of weird just having a static fake image of you in the corner.
Article, it's insane. It's insane. The Royals are funding Breadtube. Yes. So that's what's happening. Caleb Maupin, theorized in his book Breadtube Serves Imperialism that yes, without a doubt, these nefarious forces are in fact funding or guiding Breadtube commentary, right? That they are doing targeted operations and targeted commentary and trying to combat certain information that is prevailing amongst Marxist, Leninist YouTubers or commentators or influencers or anti-imperialist commentators or influencers online, Twitter users, whatever. For a while, there was never, I saw someone commenting about this. For a while, there was never anyone who was really brave enough to call out the fact that this is what Breadtube was doing and has been doing. And it really wasn't until, as far as I know,
a hero
Caleb Maupin, who's he was the first person who started to really hit the nail on the head and be like, yo, all this stuff is insane. What the fuck is going on? Like, we need.
Yes, it's 100% because he's just the hero that this city deserves, that this time called for. He has compared himself to Martin Luther King Jr., so there is that. He's also compared himself to Mao, both in the way they were politically persecuted for their beliefs, and also he has a club called the John Brown Book Club, where he gets people to sell his books on the streets as praxis. That is also a thing. But he's got a beef with a whole bunch of quote-unquote breadtubers. This Caleb Maupin does, because all of these breadtubers have been ripping into him for some time. Thought Slime is amongst them. Sean never did anything. I don't think Sean is in the big book of Breadtube. ContraPoints is in the big book of Breadtube, which is unusual, as is Vaush. Vaush is in there in the big book of Breadtube, but it was basically making a book about people, because I guess from his perspective, because he does have this persecution complex, they were going after him specifically because he's telling the truth, because he's exposing the lies about U.S. imperialism, about capitalism, and he is trying to usher in a revolution, and so he has to be silenced, and so a bunch of these online YouTubers started making videos on him. Not at all because he's a clown man. Has nothing to do with that. Like, the whole Burger King, because he couldn't tell that the Thought Slime was being sarcastic, and because he took it literally. He actually legitimately thought that he was saying Burger King weird because he didn't actually work there. So it's not as all like the man is just a humorless pile of strange, but a wonderful one, absolutely. And so yes, the big book of Breadtube, it's just a book of receipts. That's what it is. All the people he don't like.
Need to talk about this, and we need to do something about this, right? Because when you have someone like Caleb who is just speaking facts about a country like China, providing, of course, as needed, critical analysis and of a ongoing socialist project, ruthless criticism, while still recognizing their victories, and then for doing that, someone like Vosh, who we debated on this, responded by calling him a Nazi. Well, that kind of sparks a lot of red flags for me, And then, of course, you've had all of these subsequent red flags. Vosh and other breadtubers saying things like Julian Assange should be extradited to the United States and held in a CIA black site where he's tortured and killed, or we should stay in Afghanistan.
Okay, again, I guess I haven't said it yet, so I got to preface with this. Got to get this out of the way. Free Palestine, free Assange, free Snowden, fuck Big Pharma. I've said it. There you go. I'm not technically funded by the CIA. Should I say fuck the CIA? Should I add that one too? Well, that's exactly what someone who is funded by the CIA would say, isn't it? That's probably their first directive. Sean, are you still here? Can you let me know? Is Sean still here? Is that the first thing they say? Like, they're like, yes, now you must publicly continue to say you hate the CIA, just so no one becomes wise and learns of our nefarious schemes.
To further advance feminist issues, or we should further support Jayashal.
Oh, sorry, but the only reason I was trying to preface with that is that Vosh was joking. Vosh, like his statement in the article, the quote, the video, if you watch it, again, within the context, he's saying as a joke, and if you consider the joke inappropriate, that's a totally separate conversation, okay? That's one that we could certainly open at a different time, but that's not what this is about. This is not whether this joke is bad, this joke is good, this joke is spicy, this one is appropriate, this was, like, you can say it was an inappropriate joke. That would make all of you seem a lot less, I don't know, fucking hilarious in this process. Because yes, Vosh said it will, I suppose, trigger like the worst people on the internet if Julian Assange was taken to a CIA camp and tortured. Now, the joke there being that people take this as some kind of I don't know, leftist card, like a pass, if you will. This is how they know whether or not you're one true leftist, is what are your thoughts on Julian Assange? Sometimes people will pop up in my chat. I just ask that. Thoughts on Assange, thoughts on Snowden. Like, as if, like, should I say, like, I think it's a good thing that happened to them that it did. That all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, we have a full leftist. He's been infiltrated. We have uncovered him. He didn't pass the test. If only I was clever enough. If only I hadn't known. Oh man, I could have gotten past this. My schemes are all ruined. The fact that like that article took that quote and listed it as like a literal fact and then played a clip of Vosh being like, yeah, he's clearly not a true Assange. It's people like that is the reason he made that joke. It's people who use it as a barometer. People who use it as like a litmus test. How left are you? Are you left enough that you're for a free Snowden, for a free Assange? And like, of course, the answer is most likely, in a lot of these cases, yes. The overwhelming times that Hassan Piker has talked about Snowden or Assange has been that they should be free. And then he will make jokes about how people, like, you know, fans of Jimmy Dore, for example, will go after you online if they do not think that you are a true leftist. Like, how free do you want Assange? Yeah, I know you want him free, but, like, how free? You know? Because, like, I want him really free. Like, I want him to actually have freedom, you know? I want him to be able to graze in the fields, to eat all the fruits and vegetables that he so chooses, of his choosing. That's how free I want Assange to be, okay? So I want to know, like, do you want real freedom, or are you just saying that? I need to know. Just so you're pro-Big Pharma, pro-CIA, it doesn't matter if you make those disclaimers, they'll still call you Fed. Well, yeah, of course. But, like, is there a word for this? Is it Fed jacketing or something like that? Like, again, the CIA does a lot of really fucked up stuff around the world. So to then try and convince people that the CIA, one of their operations, is to fund a bunch of YouTubers who he identifies as being pro-imperialism, pro-democracy. Like, holy fuck, I just realized that one of the most ridiculous things about lumping Sean into this is that Sean was so anti-Biden. He got like ripped apart for that on Twitter. So many, like, you know, blue no matter who, vote for Biden, you got to do it to do the right thing kind of people were getting really mad at Sean at that time, who happens to be British, by the way. He's British, okay? He's not even an American. So you're surmising that this British, pro-America, pro-imperialism YouTuber went out of his way to make, I guess, a video on Hiroshima not being morally justified and being a crime, an act against, like, humanity. That whole thing was like a CIA op, was part of the deep CIA operative, who also was, like, going consistently on Twitter and saying that, like, you know, I cannot in good conscience tell you to vote for Joe Biden because of how horrifying he's been, how horrible he's been throughout his history, which is true. Joe Biden has been a super fucked up person for as long as we've known him politically. So yeah, that was all part of, again, it's wheels within wheels, you know. The CIA works in very mysterious ways. It's fucking holy shit.
This is something that, like, Dylan Burns regularly repeats. We should support Jaish al-Islam in Syria, or we should support the occupation that's being facilitated by the United States and the Kurds in the northeast of Syria. You get the idea. We should lead a Western coup against Vladimir Putin of Russia to install a more, like, favorable, you know, leader in the country. To
okay. That was and would have been such a better thing for the gray zone to have used. If they use Vosh's, like, statement that I think the CIA should quietly, like, remove Putin, something like that, that would have had a little bit more, like, I don't know, credibility towards your argument, rather than, like, a moment where anyone would objectively say while they're watching the clip of it, when he's like, yeah, I think Assange should be tortured because it'll trigger the worst people on the internet. Yeah, he's being inflammatory there for the purposes of comedy. Like, that's a very, very different thing.
Interest. These are all the things that they say that don't
Robloxing.
fall out of line
Robloxing.
with what the CIA and the State Department would want. So let's just say it's at best a little bit sus. It's a little bit sus, right? Well, it just so happens that today, as I was in the grocery store with my dad, I received a message about a
Is that when he was ratioing you?
interesting article.
Is that when you were telling him
that
to delete the ratio tweet?
Proves everything
Because he
that
ratioed
Caleb
you
Maupin had
on your
to
own
say.
Twitter account?
It proves that
Was
Caleb
that
Maupin
the
was right
moment?
about Breadtube and who it serves. The gray zone has documents to prove all of this. So I want to show it to you because this article is absolutely mind-blowing. And if you haven't retweeted this yet, go hop off the stream for a second, go retweet this. This blew my mind when I read the article. All right, and we're gonna go through it right now.
Ooh, fancy.
So Max send me this. In case anyone doubted Caleb Maupin's hypothesis that Breadtube was a pseudo-socialist vehicle aimed at undermining anti-establishment forces. For those of you who don't know, Breadtube is like a shit-lib, loosely defined.
You see, like, this would have been the same thing as me trying to put a conspiracy theory in the other direction and then actually taking myself seriously. Being like, I think the Kremlin and Putin, because Caleb Maupin works for RT, have actually been feeding both him and Max Blumenthal secretive information because they are directly funded by the Kremlin. And at the end of the day, that's why they cross-collaborated on this as a decided plot to try and take down the American empire. And that's just... I mean, I don't have any direct evidence yet, but I will. In time, I will. Where it's like, no, I don't think they care about any of that. Like, if that was the case, you'd just be useful idiots for them, right? But like, not that they're actually reaching out. Hello, is this Caleb? Yes, this is the KGB. Yes, and that's right. We would like to give you the monies, all the monies. All you have to do is take down Breadtube, our one true enemy, the one true enemy reuniting the USSR in all its glory.
Media collective of like YouTubers and streamers, both on YouTube and Twitch. In case anyone doubted Caleb Maupin's hypothesis that Breadtube was a pseudo-socialist vehicle aimed at undermining anti-establishment forces.
In fairness, against Vosh, he didn't help himself with the CIA and Putin overthrowing that would lead to World War III quicker than Ukraine. Well, I just mean that's an instance where you could take the quote and like in the broader context of what he was talking about, it's less of him like just objectively joking or being hyperbolic on the internet for the purposes of entertainment. Where the other instance is 100% an example of that. So if you're a journalist and you're like, okay, I'm going to take this quote and then print it as like factual evidence, like what are you doing? No one will take you seriously, especially people who may need to read about information that you also talk about that is important. Again, like the American embargoes on Cuba, Cuba's vaccine program, articles that appear in the gray zone that aren't based like on pure speculation, you know?
And that intelligence operatives were giving its influencers a nudge behind the scenes. We've got the documents. The Gray Zone reports leaked files expose Syria PSYOPs veteran astroturfing Breadtube star to counter critics of government COVID restrictions. Kit Clarenberg, who's been doing some great reporting at the Gray Zone, and Max Blumenthal on how UK state-backed PSYOP pros are bringing home the tactics they honed in Syria during the Syrian dirty war. All right, this is crazy stuff. And you know, Caleb Maupin responded, said, I was right about Breadtube and who serves it. The Gray Zone has documents to prove it. Let's take a look at this article. All right. And for those of you who don't know, this is PhilosophyTube, 1.08 million subscribers, huge platform. Videos get nearly 1 million views, if not more. Very, very big YouTuber. I believe a UK-based YouTuber. So huge,
good sleuthing. Crack the case
from this single YouTuber here. And you know, what's really interesting about this is like when you have YouTubers like PhilosophyTube, for example, who rarely put out content, like every few months, PhilosophyTube will put out like a video or something like that, and they get thousands and thousands of subscribers every single day on their channel. Yet you have individuals like I'm not going to use.
Oh my god!
Let's say the Gray Zone. Who?
Oh my god! Is this the conspiracy theory that they are intentionally being promoted outside of other people? That's how that works. Like, there's a thing when you get to a certain size, the algorithm starts to respond to the way you produce content, and especially if that content is consistent. So yes, there are people who can do that, people like H Bomber Guy, for example, people like Philosophy Tube, people like ContraPoints, who can release a video every 2 months or every 3 months, and then that video will also explode because that is the way their channel is set up. Then there are people like you and me, Jackson, who upload videos every single day, and we don't get the views, but I don't think that's because I'm being intentionally suppressed, or that the other people are being intentionally promoted because they happen to be in working in conjunction with the government.
Go live or post very in-depth, well-produced videos multiple times a week usually, and what they get suppressed in the YouTube algorithm. Sometimes they lose subscribers. I mean, it's really insane how the whole algorithm works, you know. But let's get into it. So this is the article right here. Valent Projects is one of the main characters in this article, and Breadtube, of course, and Abigail Thorne. So those are some of the main people you need to be aware of.
Mainstream radlibs are CIA? No effing way, bro. Pleading face.
Yeah, no, it's. They did a pretty good job of hiding it for a while, but now they have the documents to prove it. Leaked files expose serious psyops by AstroTurf
clown world.
Counter COVID restrictions.
Fucking clown world.
By covertly recruiting popular YouTube influencer Abigail Thorne to counter growing opposition to UK government COVID restrictions, PsyOps pros are bringing home the tactics.
We read the whole article, so if he's just reading it in detail, I'm gonna skip forward a bit. Undubbed challenging pseudoscience, the organization. Let's get to the T.
Established like these very, very tight-knit parasocial relations with her.
By the way, it was not lost on me how unusually and horrifyingly transphobic this article started to be about one of the most prominent members of the trans community in terms of like YouTube creators, including using terms like biological males, that women should be forced to compete with biological males. I was like, oh, yikes. How is that? Like, I don't understand how someone's like unique brand of leftism doesn't include fighting for the liberation of all peoples, especially like all marginalized peoples, right? Like that has to be core and center of what you're doing. So I don't see how it's like, well, yeah, I'm anti-imperialism. I'm not for the U.S. war machine or their hegemony, none of that. But in addition to all of that, I find trans people kind of I don't know, unusual, yikesy, if you will. So I just you know what? I'm gonna go the Caleb Maupin route. I'm just gonna say I don't know. I don't know anything about trans ideology, and I'm obviously not willing to learn. So I'm just gonna leave it as I fight for trans rights. I'm for the liberation of trans people, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't really understand. Non-binary individuals, do they deserve the same rights? I mean, it's complicated. It's complicated.
Supporters. She has over 1 million subscribers, and he says, while top breadtubers are best known for employing memes and theatrical ploys to counter right-wing narratives, they have also dedicated intense energy to attacking the anti-imperialist left as tankies engaged in a secret red-brown alliance. You guys heard that one before? It's almost like we regularly have, bot accounts that come in here and say that exact thing.
This is the first and only thing I think I can give Jackson here. I think the outrage over the Tinky scorn, and this is coming from someone who I've battled the Tinkies. Don't worry, I've had my arc. I've had my time in the sun. But I think the worry about them being like a cohesive threat to either the broader left or the online like the world IRL. I think it's an extremely online thing. And this is someone like I've battled with, tanky ideology or whatever you want to call it. But I do not think they're the biggest threat. I think there's much bigger threats facing leftism, specifically, basically the people who actually do control the levers and power in society, mostly neoliberals.
In his book, Breadtube Serves Imperialism, Caleb Maupin.
Yeah, they poisoned the discourse.
Counter gangs deployed by British and U.S. intelligence.
Similar to I don't know what you qualify Gray Zone as the patriotic U.S. for you have to be pro RT, pro Iran, pro Venezuela, pro Cuba. and anti-US is kind of like how you identify yourself. That's like a grouping of a handful of people who work in that kind of. I don't know if there's a term for it yet, though. We'll come up with something.
Southeast Asia. Breadtube speaks in the name of left-wing sounding ideals. In reality, it is likely serving one section of the American ruling elite and intelligence agencies.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This, when you are adding opinion. In reality, it is likely serving. Why would you say that? What are you basing that upon?
Maupin wrote, the covert relationship between Breadtube's Abigail Thorne, Valent Projects, and the Royal Institute appears to validate Maupin's thesis. So,
Maupin's thesis. So that means based on this, and again, at my most generous, this is so incredibly loose. If this document turns out to be true, then it would prove that a marketing PR agency considered paying a YouTube influencer money in order to spread anti-vax messaging at a time when, hey, does anyone here ever turn on the TV, listen to the radio, look outside and see a poster? Have you seen pro-vaccine posters in your area? Do you live in a Western country where there are signs saying, hey, you should get vaxxed? Because I can tell you this, as a Canadian, when I turn on the radio, sometimes I'll hear suddenly like, what is your reason? We all have a reason, but we all have to work together to get vaccinated because guess what? In the interests of capital, it makes more sense for people to get back to work, to make all the things, you know, the capitalism. So yeah, you're going to hear government agencies trying to get people to get max vaccinated because the more people who are vaccinated, of course, will lower the chances of us spreading this disease, giving the world more time to create variants. So many things. It's like it's everyone trying to get the system back to the way it was, you know, not looking at anything revolutionary along the way. So if the ads are there, do you think it's beyond the pale that a marketing firm that is again sponsored by a government initiative would want to reach out to influencers? Perhaps more influencers even than Abigail Thorne. I know she has a lot of subs. I know she's very popular, but at the same time, like there's a lot of other YouTubers. I'm sure other YouTubers could have been reached out for a variety of means. Fuck. Didn't Know Nothing post something, or was Know Nothing memeing? Know Nothing, the person who's like frequently a Destiny reply guy, didn't he post something that like I'm being sponsored by the Biden government as part of their like initiative? Like trust me, he's not a Breadtuber. I know he's not a Breadtuber, but I'm just saying, like, isn't there a direct evidence of them reaching out to people with like large Twitter accounts to spread pro-vaccine information? Also, shutdowns are bad for business. Yeah, shutdowns are bad for business. Like the pandemic is very profitable to a handful of industry, right? Like for Amazon, for example, us suddenly needing stuff delivered to our house because we're all in lockdown, that becomes increasingly more profitable. Pharmaceutical companies, increasingly more profitable, yes, but for a lot of other industries, it's devastating, absolutely devastating. So yes, the interests of capital are to get everyone vaccinated and back to work.
Let's take a look at exactly what's going on here, because when I started to read exactly what they talk about, Vosh here, other prominent Breadtubers that are...
The DNC pays the Brooklyn Dad Defiant guy. My point being is that, like, that wouldn't shock me in the slightest to find out that there are PR and marketing firms that take money from government to promote, like, a pro-vaccine message or to help spread vaccine messaging. That wouldn't shock me in the least. Like, to go from that there is a coalescence between the CIA and a number of Breadtubers. Here's some other examples that seem kind of sus. Here's Vosh saying some sussy stuff. Here's Sean doing some sussy stuff, going after Jimmy Dore, the ultimate sus of all, right? Like that's where you're like, oh my God, you were just reaching and pulling out. And that's even, again, at its most generous, even if it does turn out to be true that Abigail, that she took money from this marketing PR firm to do this, which again, that hasn't been confirmed.
Likely also Sean, the UK, I think he's a UK-based YouTuber that did that Jimmy Dore video. All of the signs are there, right? And now we have the evidence to prove it.
What are the signs? The signs in this article are so fucking spurious. That is ridiculous. Jackson, that's why people don't take this seriously. That's why people claiming to be leftists who don't do any kind of, like, I don't know, research into the article's claims, like, holy fuck. Their claims included that Vosh has previously said that he wanted to see Assange get assassinated and tortured when that was like 100% clearly a joke, because he said it would piss off the worst people on the internet. That's clearly someone being hyperbolic. You could say this is an inappropriate joke in the article, but to say that, like, this is definitely a sign. This shows that, like, I don't know, he could be, this is pretty CIA-y, you know, at the end. As someone who works in advertising and PR, there are 100% government things paying for certain messages to be pushed out. Like they wouldn't even need to disclose or anything. Absolutely. Again, like, is this not a thing in the US? Do you not have messages on your radio like that are government messages? Because I do in Canada. We have them all the time. They are pushing an agenda of whichever government has been elected to power. That's a thing that happens. At the worst, she didn't disclose that she was paid to promote a view she already publicly had. That, like, and hey, that's a discovery. That's an article. Fine, if you want to do it. I mean, it seems highly personal to me to make an article about a specific YouTuber. If you are the gray zone and you're supposed to be anti-imperialism, because I do not think that like one of the biggest threats to U.S. Hegemonic control around the planet happens to be Abigail Thorne. But hey, that would be something you could say. It's kind of inappropriate that Abigail Thorne received money at this time from a PR firm that was funded by the government in order to spread an anti-vax message, and she did not disclose, she did not hit the button on YouTube that says paid promotion. Like, okay, that's as far as this goes. To then take this to the height that this all proves Caleb Maupin, of all people, right, that like the Breadtube is a CIA operation, that's utterly absurd. Again, it makes everyone involved in this look absolutely clownish.
This was interesting. Thorne's April 2021 dismantling of the politics of right-wing culture warrior Jordan Peterson has racked up almost 2 million views and was sponsored by Curiosity Stream, a U.S. media streaming service. The video opens with a black screen disclosing the support provided by the company and claiming Thorne was her feed to the feminist campaign group Sisters Uncut. The video is also emblazoned with YouTube's paid promotion logo. Yet, no such disclaimer referring to support from the royal institution can be found on any of her other uploads. And that may be because the COVID campaign was intended to be covert. Such a shame that these documents were leaked, foiling their plan.
Oh man, I didn't even know that they all think this is like a get, that they're all like, yes, we have done it, we have finally proven the evil Breadtubers will be destroyed. What is Breadtube? Jackson, is Breadtube in the room right now? I guess, I mean, technically, hold on, since you consider me to be part of it. Uh-oh, we're gonna do it now. Breadtube is coming for you. Breadtube's in the room right now. It's here, look, it's Breadtube. Oh no, it's happened. Like, okay, first off, I reject that title. And secondly, Breadtube is a subreddit. That was one of the other embarrassing things about this article. It's like someone who doesn't fully know how to internet yet. Breadtube is a subreddit that collected videos that happened to go against the grain. YouTube for a very long time was heavily promoting videos, and this was not like, I think, by design in that they wanted to specifically promote a political agenda. It was by design in that their algorithms are designed to make as most profit to them by keeping people engaged for as long as possible. And so they started promoting a lot of people like Ben Shapiro, Sargon of Akkad, Jordan Peterson, who had these very long lectures of content that you wouldn't really find in a lot of other places, right? Like there's a lot of other social media spots where you weren't finding these like 2 to 3 hour lectures by people who were like, it's the social justice warriors and the feminists that are trying to destroy us all. Third wave feminism will kill us all. So because that was happening, there was a pushback from this subreddit in the form of, hey, the algorithm may not be promoting all these other creators a ton, but we want to start highlighting people who talk about maybe leftist things. Now, not all Breadtubers are the same. There are people who sometimes appear in Breadtube who I would say have very, very like Marxist beliefs, have very, very anti-capitalist beliefs, and then there are other people who make videos on issues that have nothing to do with anti-capitalism. But there's a whole range. Like, you know, it's not a monolith in the sense that like every single person attends the council of Breadtube and they're being paid off. And like any hierarchy that exists, there are people who are higher up. So there are people who are way more famous. There are the ContraPoints. There are the H-Bomber guys, right? There are the philosophy tubes. And those are people who are very famous and very rich. Very rich. Like you're right in calling that out in the article. They make a fuck ton of money. You know, they're making, I think, easily like $100,000 a month kind of stuff. But nonetheless, that doesn't mean that there is this evil consortium of the Council of Bread where they meet upon once a yeast or whatever they say, and then they have these shadowy messages and they all eat from a trough of CIA-funded monies and this is what we do. No. And that makes this whole thing ridiculous.
So let's read a little bit about this, what the exact campaign by Valiant Projects was. The challenging pseudoscience operation designed for Thorne.
The Grey Zone think anyone who disagrees with them are paid by the CIA. Like, I agree with Hassan. Call them what you want to call them. Just call them liberals. Call them neoliberals if you want to. But it's like, you tarnish people's understanding of the CIA and their operations and all the horrifying fucked up shit they do to this day globally. Like, there are a lot of things you could talk about. There's a lot of like verified stories you could bring up and rag on the CIA for that if you want to go at this from an anti-CIA stance. But doing this kind of, you are doing McCarthyism. Like, I'm serious. Unironically, every one of you is doing McCarthyism because you are just claiming that every single person is like a communist infiltrator, but in this case, it happens to be a CIA infiltrator. Every single one of them. Like, you're just adding this boogeyman aspect to them all. All of a sudden, it's like, yes, this person happens to be a CIA-funded op because they disagree with me. They disagree with me. They must be CIA. Every single one of them.
Was launched in
it's reverse McCarthyism. That's what it is. You're all doing reverse McCarthyism to the benefit of the CIA, by the way, to the benefit of American imperialism. Like, Sean, come on, please just watch some of his videos. You can't watch the bombing of Hiroshima, like, and it's a very long and well-researched video, and walk away from that thinking that Sean is pro-imperialism, that Sean is pro-US military, that he's for the military-industrial complex. Like, how could you ever surmise that? And again, there are people in that same like venue because they appear on a subreddit. People like Hakeem, for example. Hakeem is a very well learned Marxist. He knows so much about theory. I think he could go toe to toe with any single person from the gray zone when it comes to Marxism, when it comes to discussing, or Caleb Maupin, or Jackson Hinkle, or even, dare I say, infrared. You know, he knows so much about these kind of topics. So to claim that he's one of the exceptions, you know, there's some good breadtubers and there's some bad breadtubers, and no breadtubers are the same, but there are some who are CIA funded and some who are not. And Vosh, like, including Vosh in this, when there are so many breadtubers who hate Vosh. It destroys your entire. There are breadtubers who make entire takedown videos of Vosh that are still considered breadtubers, whose videos still rank really high. Like, John Duncan's video was fucking really high, and that's a takedown video of Vosh about how much, like, the whole thing is like, you know, they're drinking piss. The Professor Flowers debate was terrible, like comparing black ethnostates to white ethnostates. The whole thing is a takedown. So what does that mean? How does that fit into the scheme, into this paranoid delusion that every single one of these people happens to be a CIA op, you know? Hakeem is not part of Breadtube. No one is or is not a part of Breadtube. Sipariski. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. There is no such thing as Breadtube being an organization or a group. It is a subreddit. It is a subreddit where people post videos and they get upvoted or downvoted. Who will be considered Breadtube at any given time is going to be based on the amount of people who are A, online that day, and B, what their own personal beliefs are politically. That is what it is, like, a barometer of. That is what is it, like, that's what it's doing in terms of measurement. And yes, sometimes I have seen Hakeem videos on there. I have also seen anti-Vosh videos on there. I have seen anti-Destiny videos on there. Like, that's the thing. It's a subreddit. It's a subreddit. That's all it is. Like, don't take it as an offense to be like, Hakeem is going to be on Breadtube. Like, I think you're thinking of that as a personal insult. And what I'm trying to explain to you is that there is no such thing. Like, unless everyone started identifying themselves, unless all of a sudden a bunch of people came out and were like, yes, I am Je suis Breadtube. Je suis Breadtube. Should we do that ad? Je suis Breadtube. AOC, je suis CIA. AOC, CSIS. Parce que je suis Canadien. Je suis Breadtube. Je suis Breadtube. There you go. And now we just need every other Breadtuber to make that. Okay, one by one, they can do it, and then we'll have some sad music play in the background. We'll edit the whole thing together, and there you go. We've created it. We've created Breadtube. We've done it. You know, it's happened. But until that happens, it's a fucking subreddit. Like, I think Caleb was just surprised that so many different content creators were going after him, both because he hosted someone who was saying some incredibly yikesy transphobic stuff, but also all the anti-Semitic literature that he has both published and said in his speeches, right? I think because of that, all of a sudden, he was like, well, why is it that these specific individuals are making fun of me? Why is it that Thought Slime is going after me? And the person called Big Joel and Jack Saint are going after me on the Twitters? What is happening here? It's because they're CIA. That's the only explanation. They're trying to take me down because the CIA is funding them to do so because I am telling the truth. I'm the only one who speaks the truth. So everyone I don't like must be CIA. And again, just be Breadtube. Hakeem has a video on Breadtube. Probably. I bet it's good too. He wouldn't be the first. Let me look it up. But yeah, I should upload Hakim's video on Breadtube to Breadtube, and then we can upvote it on Breadtube, and then all of a sudden, we've destroyed the whole system. Hakim's videos, defectors, cooperatives. This was the one I was just finishing watching. Socialism is based. The heck is going on with Cuba? Well, anyways, my point in all this being is that they're like there is no such thing as Breadtube being like an organization or a collective in which everyone meets and talks and all that kind of stuff. Funny aside, someone tried to add the whole CIA claim to her Wikipedia, but it got removed because it was unsourced, and Wikipedia bans the gray zone as a source. Well, yeah, but that's because they're CIA. Breadtube debate builds a problem with the Western left. Nice. Okay, I'll give this a watch. But that's my entire point, by the way, is that like, because it's a subreddit, because anyone can upload any video to it, and again, it's going to be based on the uploads or downloads of videos today, you will get incredibly contradictory things. You'll get a video you'll get a Vosh versus Tim Pool debate one month, and then you'll get a John the Duncan video getting upvoted where he's calling out debate bros. Like that's just what is going to happen in a subreddit, because that's what it is. It's a subreddit.
21 by liberal science journalist Angela Saini, the author of several popular titles in a forthcoming book on the origins of patriarchy. She is also part of the Lancet COVID-19 Commission's task force on global health diplomacy. The commission's chief, Peter Dajic, a zoologist who serves as president of the US-based NGO known as Eco Health Alliance, just so happened to be one of those guys.
Oh yeah, Olnon, you could not be more like, breadtubers fight breadtubers all the time. Some breadtubers fucking hate other so-called breadtubers. If you're gonna just consider all these people who happen to do like this kind of lefty political shit online, like they're constantly fighting, but they're supposed to. Again, it's because the CIA pays them to do that.
Who was, forced to resign
to make no one suspect them.
Interest issues. He was one of those dudes who was, in the years leading up to the outbreak of COVID-19, working extensively on bat coronaviruses and gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. His organization received tens of millions in funding from the Pentagon's Defense Threat Reduction Agency, a division countering weapons of mass destruction in improvised networks, threat networks.
I was a top post on So Close to Getting It? No way. Hold on. Nice. Man, this one went viral, eh? So basically I found a conservative meme that says, inoculate your kids against socialism by having them clean the bathroom, pay them $10, then take away their $7 and give it to their siblings who didn't help. Socialism won't seem so attractive then. And they said, this is actually capitalism. You're exploiting your kids' labor and giving the surplus to someone who doesn't deserve it. And then this person says, socialism is more like having everyone else clean up after themselves because they'll realize they'll all benefit from a clean bathroom. That's not socialism. That's just common sense. Oh, wow. That's cool. Didn't know I was going to be on the front page. It makes sense, Well, so that's, I guess, the second award that I've gotten. I got the Destiny Community's Brainlet of the Year award, which, oh, by the way, I should say, a way better name, and what you really should have called it, is the Dunning-Kruger Effect Award. That would have been way more hurtful. You wouldn't have to be nearly as ableist, and then that's a good way of describing what you're trying to call out. Someone who feels like they're getting more intelligent despite them having dumber and dumber takes, right?
And listen to this. This stuff is crazy as well. The files indicate, released, that the Royal Institution enlisted the services of Valent Projects, a communications firm working with clients in the UK and all over the world to counter disinformation and strengthen the bonds between people. Valent was founded by Emil Khan, a former Reuters and BBC reporter who officially left journalism to help the good cause, or to help the good cause navigate the new information landscape. So we're going to learn more about
I say Kruger like Freddy Krueger.
Right? He was one of the guys that was on the ground in Syria embedding himself.
I shouldn't correct myself because I'm actually getting more intelligent the more I say it that way. So it actually is the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's what I'm going to go with. I'm just going to run with it because it has no effect on me, clearly.
In these terrorist groups. Finn, thank you for the super chat.
Maupin once again proved correct.
100%.
Maupin is always right.
Radical Leftist Agenda, shout out. Thank you for the raid. Everyone go follow Radical Leftist Agenda on Twitch. Hope you're doing well. We're just reading about the vindication of Caleb Maupin via the Grey Zone's new report on leaked documents which show that the British Foreign Office was working in tandem with, and the Royal Institute was working in tandem with Valent Projects to fund a covert information campaign with popular breadtuber Abigail Thorne of PhilosophyTube.
But Vosh told me CIA influence is awesome. Why would he say such things? Are you saying he lied to me? Pleading face, pleading face.
God, I just love how much the Grey Zone, like Max Blumenthal and Kit Klarenberg and Caleb Maupin, just their mere existence, just like causes people like Vosh and Abigail Thorne's, like, brains to fucking implode. Their mere existence.
I'm gonna guess that Abigail had no idea who any of you are. Like, until like now, obviously, probably, I'm sure she's acutely aware, but I'm gonna guess back in the day there was absolutely nothing. So, for supposedly leftist blog, editors at the Grey Zone have either A, promoted far-right anti-Semitic beliefs, or B, been promoted by alt-right activists, or C, promoted the far-right activities themselves. Ben Norton, another major editor of the Grey Zone, has retweeted a fascist and a Holocaust denier. The account also supports a race war, and is also very sexist and homophobic. Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil, who are married, Parampil formerly worked at RT, frequently appear on Fox News with Tucker Carlson. Zero Hedge cites the Grey Zone multiple times. A writer for David Duke's website praised him for his work. Blumenthal's articles were republished by the alt-right in the UN's Review. Their podcast, Moderate Rebels, promotes white nationalism, Pepe Escobar. So next time you hear the Grey Zone is calling for everyone they disagree with far right, you can bring those up. The Grey Zone has spread conspiracy theories about George Soros multiple times, and included in that one, by the way. That was like we were doing a ding ding ding, because in that article they actually included both George Soros and Bill Gates, blaming him for regime changes around the world. Blumenthal also blames Soros for supporting protests in Hong Kong, Latin America, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. This doesn't make sense, as Trump does not like Soros and thinks that protesters who were protesting against Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination were paid by Soros. They believe in Big Pharma? What are you talking about? That one can't be true. They promoted anti-vaxxer Del Bigtree. No, they're anti-Big Pharma. No question. Why won't the U.S. medical establishment believe women? COVID-19 vaccines do not warn about menstrual disruption. See, this is anti-vax fear-mongering. Why the Bill Gates global health empire promises more empire and less public health. See, this one is a little bit closer. Like, it's, again, these are things, Big Pharma, there's a lot of things you can call them out on. Bill Gates, a lot of things you can call him out on. He is like I'd say unquestionably frightening. The fact that he has bought up more U.S. farmland than any private individual. Why? Like, and why aren't we stopping him? Like that seems like something that, like, a cartoon supervillain would do. It's getting to the point now where it's just like, yeah, he's now the private single holder of U.S. farmland. Like, okay, well, let's talk about that, or talk about the conspiracy theories. Same but different, right?
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we beseech thee to smite down our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble court jesters, here to amuse you. To our lords, Trevor R., we give thanks for this spit of land for us to eke out this meager existence. To our knights, Merid, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Ellie Leslie, Alex P., Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Yanis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our flag in a veil, and we salute you, our friends.